Today's speaker is Mehrenegar Rostami. Mehrenegar is an assistant professor of teaching in the area of musicology at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. She received her PhD in ethnomusicology from UCLA in 2023. Her research engages with the dynamics of human mobility, socioeconomic developments, and political cultural identity formations in inter and multicultural environments. She's conducted ethnographic fieldwork research on international music festivals in Austria, Canada, Germany, Iran, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and the United States, and her publications have appeared in various ethnomusicological journals in the US and elsewhere. So we are excited to have her and welcome.
Uh, Thank you very much, Lindsay. I really appreciate the kind introduction and thank you for having me here. And thank you all for being here for this presentation. Can I ask if I can share my screen so I can share my slides with you? Okay, great. Excellent. Before I start, I want to say, obviously, I'm not an expert in this field, but I've been engaging with different game platforms and interactive assignments. I have been focusing on them in the past year or so. And when Igor and Lindsay reached out to me, I was happy to um, present on this topic as part of the Brown Bag. And I am very pleased to share some of the results that I learned in the past year. So, I'd like to start by saying a few things about where the research stands on the gamification of classrooms. So it's actually very interesting that there is an enormous support for the use of games in higher education classrooms and especially for adult learners. And I have to say that I believe this is especially this it has turned into a kind of a trend in my opinion. Obviously, the use of games and plays and interactive assignments in classrooms are very useful, but I find myself I was basically very surprised when I started researching on games and gamification of classes that there aren't so many articles or sources that would offer critics. If you search in well-known research guides through well-known research guides, how effective or non-effective the use of games in the use of games in classrooms is, you will find enormous support for games and different types of plays across the board. And there are obviously good reasons for that. Plays and games are among important forms of learning, learning that are especially experienced by children. And, we grow up learning about important things in our surrounding and environments through games and different types of plays. But games and plays did not have as conspicuous a place as it has today in the pedagogies of arts, humanities, and social sciences. And I'd like to take a couple of minutes here and share a few things about my own background with you. So I studied music in my home country, Iran, and then I went to Austria. I studied musicology and dance studies in the University of Salzburg, Austria, and then I got my first master's there. I went to Canada I got my second master's in ethnomusicology. I went to UCLA to get my PhD. So, and I'm saying this not to prove um, my credentials, but to say, in all my time in academia in the past 2 decades, I never experienced in any places, the importance of games and plays in classroom as I experienced it here at UTK. As I said, I've been to different types of, I studied in different types of academic institutions in different parts of the world in the past 2 decades, but none of the institutions put so much emphasis on gaming and gamification of classrooms as I experience it here. So when I was putting my classes together last year, I realized that I obviously need to engage with different types of games because not only there is a strong encouragement from the university, but also students obviously expect it from you to use different types of games in your classes. And I teach musicological courses, so we teach a lot of history. And if you don't incorporate games or interactive assignments, it's really easy to lose the attention of students in our classes. So the good thing is that with the increased attention towards games and gamifications of classrooms in our time, there are many different possibilities that we can use in order to spice up our lectures and to engage our students and make our classes more attractive for them and for us as well, obviously. One of the important sources that I came across as I was doing research in the past year, and also as I was trying to put my presentation together for this talk, is an article by Liz K. Forbes. It's called The Process of Play in Learning in Higher Education. And I feel that she gives a really interesting definition of plays. It's something that I wasn't aware before I started, doing more research in this field. In her opinion, play is underused and devalued in higher education. And this article came out in 2021. And I feel things have changed obviously tremendously since 2021, especially during the COVID. We started capitalizing on digital platforms obviously more than ever. But she argues that, the use of games are really important for cultivating relational security and a warm classroom environment. And she also believes that a proper use of games and plays can remove barriers to learning. This is something that I had to, this last point specifically was something that I had to pause on for a long time. And I'd like to ask you to think about it as well, because obviously games are really important and can serve as a very useful educational tool for us. But at the same time, oftentimes I fear that through gamification of our lectures, we can undermine the significance of serious topics, and not every single subject matter I feel is useful for creating games. For example, I teach a GE course at the College of Music called Music in the United States, and we engage with the history of slavery, with the types of music involved in the history of slavery. And I feel we talk about different types of conflicts that different groups of indigenous people in the United States had to deal with. And so I feel the use of games in those classrooms can be not very effective. And so I'd like to encourage you to think about that. And I would like to ask you to share your opinions with me towards the end of my talk. But this is something that even though she really, Forbes really promotes in her article, it was something that I had to really talk about very long time. Um, I had to think hard about it for a very long time. She also believes that, plays and games can awaken positive affect and motivation in students, which I think it's oftentimes very true. And games can trigger an open and engaged learning attitude to enhance learning. Now, both she and other authors I consulted for this presentation talk about different types of games in classrooms. They talk about small action plays, and they also talk about a large initiative plays. Small action plays can include, really small initiatives like playing music just at the beginning of the classroom as students enter the room. And I have to say, I found this tool very, very effective. I mean, I teach music, so it comes really naturally to us to incorporate musical examples in our classes, and we discuss different types of musical examples throughout our lectures, but including musical examples right at the beginning, especially an engaging musical example right at the beginning of class when students are still coming to the classroom, I think it can be really effective. Last year I was teaching a course called A History of Western Classical Music. So we talk about classical compositions from the late 17th century to early 20th century. And the course includes a lot of history, and not especially the new generation of students. Not everyone is fond of classical music. Not everyone is has heard of Bach or Mozart. So one thing I did in my lectures was that, for example, if I had a lecture on Mozart, I looked for a pop style performance of one of Mozart's pieces, and you can find numerous of them, and or a heavy metal version of one of Mozart's pieces, and I would play that right at the beginning of the course as students would still coming into the classroom. And you can't imagine how much positive reactions are received. The whole college was coming in, looking from the window of the classroom to see what's going on here, because obviously they didn't expect to hear a heavy metal version of Mozart in a history of Western classical music. So I think, and obviously I'm teaching music classes, but as I was reading, this is a trick that you can use in any classes, from accounting to anthropology to business. I mean, obviously students really like to listen to music, and this is something that I found very effective. We are all obviously familiar with an icebreaker activity, especially at the beginning of the semester. And I have prepared a couple of examples that I would like to show you as I go through my presentations. Polling, listening challenges. Another example that I found really useful is just to create a challenge for students. And again, I'm in a music field, but I think that can be obviously adapted to any other field as well. For example, for my music in the United States class, right at the beginning of the semester, I created a playlist of examples, different musical genres, compositions from American musicians, from indigenous to jazz, blues, hip hop, rap, and Arab American music, a very diverse collection of music. And I just asked students as part of the challenge. I played each of those examples, and I asked them whether they think this example belongs to the US or it's a global example. It belongs to somewhere else from the world, and you can't imagine that they actually didn't couldn't get most of the answers right, because they aren't really familiar with the diversity of musical styles and genres that we have in the United States. So this is something that I also found really effective, and I think this is also an exercise that can be adapted into different fields as well. And then the large initiative plays obviously incorporates activities that students can be engaged with throughout the class. So we can use games to teach concepts, games to teach the entire content of lecture. Scavenger hunt is an example that I use, especially when I want to teach them about library sources. So I ask them to go find different sources in the library through a scavenger hunt. Jeopardy game is something that I often use when I want to review the course material for their listening quizzes, midterm or final exams, and they usually really like Jeopardy. They love Jeopardy, especially when they can win prizes. Um, so, one thing I want to emphasize before I move on to talk about specific games and platforms I use in my classes um, is that, and this is something that I had to learn, is that, the concept of, especially in this day and age, it's really easy because of the dominance of the digital platforms in our lives to limit the understanding of games to digital platforms. So and here again I found Forbes' article really useful, and she explains that the play itself is any tool that allows the student to engage with and experiment with new concepts. So it can be anything. It doesn't necessarily need to be a digital educational platform, anything like, a scavenger hunt, asking them to go and find things in the library, to, asking them to listen to a series of musical examples or to engage with a series of objects. These can all serve as a form of play for them. And play, of course, is a multi-layered phenomenon, and it has different aspects, and it's really important um, oh, sorry, the Zoom was in the middle of my slide. It's really important to realize that we can really expand our understanding of play or games in our classrooms. And again, another point that I think I found in Forbes's article really useful is that I was trying really hard to find exercises and assignments that have direct relationship to the content of my lecture. First of all, because I really didn't want to lose time. We have to cover a tremendous amount of content throughout the semester. But one thing that she highlights in her article is that play can be unrelated to the content, and that's for a good reason, because it can lighten the mood and encourage interpersonal connections and engagements in class. So oftentimes, even though classes that I teach are generally focused on music history, theory, so we don't in musicology we don't really teach performance, but whenever I realize that my students are tired or they don't have the same attention span that they had at the beginning of the class, one of the exercises I do is that I ask them to stand up, and we do a couple of quick breathing exercises, and I transform the breathing exercise into a singing exercise. And most of my students are non-music majors, so they don't really know how to sing. But by a couple of small guidelines, I let them know that they can use their voice and sing, and that really lightens up the mood, even if they don't like it, and if they they feel that they are shy and they don't want to sing. But because it's for a lot of them, it's the first time that they do it, they laugh, they look at each other, they engage with each other. And, just for 2 or 3 minutes, and then, the whole mood of the class has changed, and then I can have their attention again. So obviously the purpose of the class is not to teach them singing, but is just to distract them for a moment, to engage them with something that can, encourage them to smile or laugh, and then bring back their attention to the classroom. And this is something that I often do in all my classes, both undergraduate and graduate uh, 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 lectures. A few other things that I came across as I was doing research on this topic was that, it's really important to turn, and I'm sure you know this obviously better than me, but I just wanted to make sure that I highlight these points as well, is that it's really important to turn the content of your lecture into a kind of a story. Students, follow a story better. But it's not only that, they like to know about the instructor, and they like to learn about the instructor's story. And when they hear that, and, when we spice up our contents with our personal experiences, obviously they listen and they follow better. And, but something I learned during the research on this subject was that uh, it's not that we should, share our stories with students. That comes more naturally, especially in a large classroom when you have 50 students in front of you. It's hard to ask, or 100 students. It's hard to really ask one by one to share their stories with you. So we are usually the ones who tell about our personal experiences. But I found a couple of platforms that allow them to share their stories with the class and also with themselves, that help them to, break the ice and more readily engage with the course material. So telling stories is obviously really important. And then be playful or embrace your playfulness. I myself, I'm not a very humorous person, but and I know that usually instructors who have a sense of humor, students can connect better with them. But that doesn't mean what one thing I learned is that still you can embrace a sense of playfulness, like for example, creating playful slides or using more musical examples or videos or things that students can engage with as part of the lecture. Um, and then obviously incorporating playful objects or games in classroom. This is something that I'm going to focus on. In the past few semesters, I have been using primarily these five platforms that you can see on the slide: PowerPoint slides, Quizlet, Mentimeter, study.com, and Materia. And I don't know how much time I have, if I can cover all of these platforms or not, but I'm gonna go over at least two or three and show you the ways in which I have been using them in my classes and some of their advantages and disadvantages, obviously. So one of the interactive assignments that I came to really love and I found it really effective in my classes are just the use of PowerPoint slides. And I have prepared a couple of examples to show them to you to see how I use them. So before I really discuss some of its advantages, I'm just gonna show that to you. Can you see my screen? Can you see this example? Yeah, so I typically create uh, a set of slides. For example, this one is one of their assignments, and I usually call this set of assignments as online discussion forum. For example, for this one, I'm sorry, I changed this a few times. It automatically changes it. So for this one, I have asked them to watch. Um, I have asked them to watch a documentary. I have provided the link for them here. Uh, I don't want to change it right now, but the text should be in white. I don't know why it has changed. So I provide the link for them both here and on Canvas, and I provide them with let me see if I have a better, no, it's the same. Okay. Okay, both here and on Canvas. And I asked them to explain in one paragraph of 200 words what this documentary conveys, refer to at least two musicians who were featured in this documentary, and explain why they were featured in this documentary. And I asked them to include, their takeaway from the documentary. But one thing that I really like about this exercise is that it allows them to be really interactive and creative. So I create a set of slides and I ask them to so each student is responsible for creating just one slide. And so they can change their slide in whatever way they want. They post their responses, and then they have to read the response of another student and leave a comment. One thing I usually ask them is that their comments should be very comprehensive, at least 100 to 150 words, because oftentimes they tend to just say, loved it, great job, and I want them to really think about the concepts introduced in the documentary in a very critical way and think about each other's responses. So I typically ask them to provide, 100 to 150 word response, and students really like this because obviously it's not a very long assignment. It forces them to provide concise responses, and it allows them to be creative. So, for example, I also use this exercise for as an icebreaker, and I found it also very effective. And the first day of classes, again, I create a set of slides. I offer them introductions on the first or second slide, and then I ask them to create their own slides, either individually or in groups. So in this class, obviously, I ask them to work in groups, and I ask them to tell their story in a few bullet points and using images, using sounds, in whatever way they want. So, and then they have to work in groups of 3 or 4, and they, talk about their interests, and then they create these slides the way they want it. And then obviously they can comment on each other's slides and learn about their interests. And I think this exercise can especially really be effective both in online and live classes, and also in large classes, because students can work together in their own time and learn about each other's stories. And I really think that this set of exercises has helped me elevate the mood in my classes, especially in the first couple of sessions when students don't know each other and aren't sure about the course and things like that. So these slides are obviously very easy to set up. The PowerPoint slides offer a flexible platform. Both students and faculty have easy access to the slides. The slides allow for playfulness and encourage students to be creative. And more importantly, it provides students with a viewable platform to engage with one another, and it asks them to be concise in their assignments, because they just have one slide to work with. And obviously, we can also really easily integrate slides in our canvases. Um, But like everything else that we use, there are some disadvantages, even though I really like this exercise and this assignment. But some of the disadvantages I experience in my classes are that students obviously cannot directly submit something directly to Canvas. They have to click on the link, and if they are not used to it, they get really confused. Where should we submit something? So when you set it up on Canvas, it's really important that you change the setting. And this is something I learned from my instructional designer, and I'm really grateful to her. I believe she's here. Is that, put the setting on no submission so students know they can't directly submit something on Canvas. Sorry, I lost. Um, just give me a second. Oh, I think I have to go like this. No, you're gonna get a quick review of everything. So, you're getting there. Yeah. Uh, so, um, so in order to avoid any confusion, it just you have to make sure that you change the setup of Canvas to no submissions so students know that they have to look for something else in order to post their responses. Obviously, the PowerPoint slides doesn't offer a very suitable platform for major writing assignments. And it requires students to have a basic knowledge of Microsoft and Microsoft PowerPoint. You don't know how many times I got a question how they can duplicate a slide, something that might come really naturally to us, but students may not know it, that they can just click enter or just copy C and copy V to duplicate this slide. So this is something that might just complicate the use of this platform for a classroom. But obviously you can also explain them in the guidelines for the assignments. Another platform I have been using and trying in the past few months is called Quizlet. And this platform is also uh, quite flexible, and it allows for creating different types of interactive assignments. Like, for example, you can create a game called Blast, Match, Blocks, and also you can just share your notes in the flashcards form. For example, I had this is a set of flashcards I use for my music in the United States class in order to review important concepts with my students. So, and you can easily share the link on Canvas. And so, for example, uh, 1519 is the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire. What does the new word mean? How to which part of the world it refers? So they can obviously go through the flashcards in order to review important concepts, but you can also easily, just by click of a button, turn it into a test or into a game. You can assign it as an activity to students and incorporate it on Canvas, or you can use it live in classes, especially in in-person classes. And students really like to play with their cell phones, obviously. When they see a barcode and they can respond to questions, they're really happy. That has been my experience here. So this is something that I have been using in especially my undergraduate courses. But one thing I'd like to um, uh, emphasize is that a lot of these platforms use AI these days, obviously, and they also offer ready-made sets for especially popular concepts. For example, history of the U.S. You can find a lot of different ready-made sets of flashcards or tests available on a platform like Quizlet. But because a lot of them have been produced by AI, they have a lot of errors. So I really want to caution you that if you want to use any of those ready-made sets, please go over them carefully because they can include a lot of factual errors. So among its some of the disadvantages I encountered in the use of Quizlet is that it really requires getting used to. So in order to really learn how you can take advantage of this platform, you have to spend some time. So if you haven't used this before in your classes, I don't really recommend that you start using it in the middle of a semester as something that you need to really play around in order to understand how you can best adapt it to your lectures and classrooms. And if you want to create something from scratch, it requires a lot of time. Oftentimes I had to spend a couple of hours in the minimum to prepare a set of, short quizzes for my classes using Quizlet or other platforms. But obviously, like anything else, once you get used to it, it's really easy to use them. One of the major limitations I encountered in Quizlet is that it does not allow for integrating audiovisual examples, so it's mostly text. It does have an audio feature, which basically reads what you create, but it doesn't allow you to include or incorporate external audiovisual examples. In a live classroom, it's easy to use two things at the same time. For example, you can play your examples on YouTube or Spotify and then use the test to accompany with them. But it creates a challenge for asynchronous classes, obviously. And Quizlet doesn't work with Canvas really well. You can obviously include a link, but again, students who aren't used to it can get really easily confused. And if the setup is not correct, it can create a lot of confusion and you can end up losing a lot of time in the classroom. Another really important educational platform I have used in the past couple of semesters is a platform called Mentimeter. And I have to say, compared to Quizlet, Top Hat, even Kahoot, and a lot of other educational platforms that have become, popular. I found this one the most effective. It has a really nice design. It is very flexible and it offers many different possibilities. You can create your own slides or use set designs. It is very interactive and engaging, and it allows for collective engagement of students. You can link your PowerPoint presentation with Menti, and also you can incorporate it more easily on Canvas. You can embed it on Canvas. I want to show you again an example. Why does this happen? Okay, I'm going to go quickly to. So here is Mentimeter. Well, this is actually prepared for our session today. Let me see if I can get this back. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this is a test I created for my global pop class. So I played a series of examples and I asked students to just say whether it's pop, folk, or classical. So, and they can, scan the barcode or go to the link and give a code and then do the test very quickly. And I found, it allows you to design your own slides in whatever way you feel can be more useful for for the content of your classes and also the way you'd like to design it. And then they choose whichever it is, and they can, rate their responses, and then they can see the responses at the end. They can see the responses of their classmates. So I'm gonna show it to you through an example that I prepared for our session in a moment. Um, But before I'll ask you to do the quick test I have prepared, the quick interactive assignment I have prepared, I want to also highlight some of the disadvantages of this platform. It requires subscription. It's very expensive. I think it costs about 200 something dollars per year. Whereas, for example, Quizlet, it's going to cost only 30 bucks or 30 something bucks for the whole year. But I ask our college, since I'm using it in my classes, I ask them to provide me with a subscription. So that's something that you might be able to ask them to do for you. Um, um, uh, Quizlet, it doesn't allow for the incorporation of audiovisual examples in the Mentimeter platform. So if in live classes, it's not a problem because you can combine it with another platform or another application like, you know, Spotify or YouTube. But it's going to create a challenge in asynchronous classes. For example, I couldn't really use it for my listening challenges because I had to play the listening examples separately from the Mentimeter. So I couldn't have all students in one place at one time in order to ask them to do that. It does have a survey option that allows for asynchronous use of the platform, but the problem with that is that by default, it's anonymous. So whoever participates in it remains anonymous. So it's really good for polling if you just want to get a sense of how the whole class feels. But if you want to grade individual assignment, use it as individual assignments and grade individual individual students' outputs, it's not going to be very useful. And just like Quizlet, it requires a lot of time to prepare and get used to the possibilities that um, the application offers. Now, I'd like to ask you, this is something that I ask my students. I prepared just a very fun interactive assignment if you can, with your mobile devices, just scan the barcode or you use the link I have for you here and use the code and go to the assignment. I'm gonna open it myself. Present. So you can see the barcode here and you can see the code. Can you tell me if you have access to it? Have you been able to access it?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
great. Okay, so let me see. There you go. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin. What are some of your favorite games? You should be able to write through your mobile devices. Yeah. Excellent. I know Monopoly, but I didn't know Sorry as a game. That's interesting. Risk, yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So as you can see, it's very interactive and student love, and you can see the responses of everyone who participates. Mousetrap, I love that. Poker, yes. I'm not sure how we can use poker in a classroom. Clue is great, yes. Card games, obviously. Scrabble, I love Scrabble. Yeah, so this if you're okay, I'm gonna move to the second question. What do you think is the dark side of classrooms gamification? Unclear instructions, grading can be tricky. Yes. Mhm. Yes, I agree. Especially for serious topics, it can be problematic. Yeah, it can be very hard balancing fun and learning. Yeah, not always effective. I agree. Yeah, I agree. They can distract it from the concept and not engage seriously with the concept. Yeah, I think we should adapt it, but I think striking a balance can also be an important question that we can think about it. Yeah, I don't like that part either, Jamie. I agree. Okay, the next one, I wanted to show you another way that students can engage with the Mentimeter, game or not to game. I play with the title of my presentation as well. This is something that students also like because it's interactive, it's just really easy to engage with, and it's also playful. Yeah, excellent. So the majority agrees that we should adapt it. Um, so I'm gonna go back here. Let me make sure I can see you. So I am at the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.